It's known as the most powerful lobby in America. And next weekend, the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, will convene in Washington, D.C. to double down on what officials have called an unbreakable bond with Israel. Confirmed speakers include everyone from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Congressman Barney Frank, to the President of the Czech Republic. So joining me now to discuss AIPAC and the power it wields here in the U.S. Capitol, I'm joined by Israeli dissident Ronnie Barkan. Thank you so much for coming on, Ronnie. Amazing to have you on. So you're planning on being involved in an event in the first week of March called Shut It Down AIPAC. Why did you guys choose AIPAC?
Well, AIPAC is definitely playing a key role in supporting American oppression of Palestinians through its support of Israel, which is carrying out decades-long oppression and also a regime that falls under the definition of apartheid, which is a serious crime in itself. And we know that AIPAC is playing a key role here, and therefore there is an event, a four-day event, starting February 28th, that will culminate on March 3rd, which will be actually the day where Netanyahu is due to speak to Congress.
You know, I want to talk about AIPAC's power in Washington here because, particularly in anticipation of next year's elections, I think it's really interesting that you have, Bernie Sanders, of course, aside. Elizabeth Warren is a really interesting one because every time she's confronted about this issue, she either runs away and hides in a closet or, most recently at a fundraiser, a supporter asked her to give her stance on Palestine. The organizers literally ignored the question, turned on music and told everyone to start dancing. This is just one ridiculous example of this. But do you think AIPAC is really the greatest contributor to even progressives like Warren turning a blind eye to Israel's war crimes?
I think that AIPAC is a great symbol of what you were just referring to. We cannot have criticism of Israel in the United States. It is even worse than actually the criticism that we hear in Israel itself about the policies of the State of Israel. And I think that by AIPAC's strong lobbying, along with many other lobbyists, as we all know, this is what we see, that the moment there is any form of Jew criticism, then other forces are in place, and they deny this Jew criticism.
But why do you think it's worse here than in Israel itself? That's pretty insane.
We can speak about Israel being discriminatory, even being an apartheid state in Israel, far more than we can do in the States. We hear such things on Israeli media all the time. Same goes for the call for boycotts. In Israel, there are quite a lot of discussions about boycott, but here we know that they are actually appealing now to include measures in order to deny the boycott of Israel legally, to deny that possibility in the U.S.
So what are you guys hoping to achieve with the Shut It Down AIPAC?
I think that one very important thing that we would like to do is to connect the dots, and also to bring in people who are supporting Black Lives Matter, people who, some black activists who have been to Palestine recently will be participating in the discussion, in the event that will take place here in D.C. And this is very important because we know that oppression abroad and oppression here has the same roots, and we know that there are the same, this inherent racism is being expressed both towards the people here and outside.
Now, what kind of role does Zionism play in U.S. politics? Because, you have people like, it's obviously different than Israel. First of all, you have on one hand Netanyahu, all of the world saying all Jews come here, of course, pretending like there's no one already living there, right? Like everyone come here every time some event happens, just move to Israel, right? And then you have politicians here like Joe Lieberman, who are not Israeli, who are just Jewish, but they're Zionist. Doesn't this only reinforce the point that Israel's an ethno-supremacist nation?
That is exactly it. Zionism is a movement that is a nationalistic movement, an ethnic supremacist movement that is using and abusing Judaism for its needs. And basically, the thing is that, sorry, my English. basically what we have is that this ethnic supremacist movement is trying to say that if you are critical of and you're also critical of Jews, then you're an anti-Semite. That in itself is an anti-Semitic claim, basically equating all Jews with the support of the State of Israel, saying that if you're ethnically Jewish, then you must also be supportive of the criminal apartheid state. And I do not accept that, and we have to challenge that.
And I'm glad that you are challenging that. I mean, this is another really interesting controversy that's been brewing in Congress about whether or not Netanyahu is actually going to speak. Of course, he ultimately is. Why do you think that that happened? What is kind of the young Americans' discontent, I guess? Is that a good sign that a lot of people were saying, hey, we don't want him to speak? I mean, ultimately he is, of course. But I mean, do you think that the trend is maybe changing here in America about that?
Things are changing dramatically. You could say that for 6 decades, nothing has been changing about Israel-Palestine. And for the past decade, everything is changing. Pretty much since the BDS campaign started, the boycott investment and sanctions campaign against Israel started. And 10 years ago, we would still hear talks about Israel being the only democracy in the Middle East. And then later on, they started talking about it as a flawed democracy, a democracy minus. And nowadays, we hear even John Kerry, behind closed doors, he was asking whether Israel is an apartheid state. And we hear this type of change of discourse and change of perception of Israel all throughout the world. In the UK, there was recently a poll about which are the least favorable countries among UK public, and basically Israel was second to last. It was regarded as better than North Korea, but actually in a less favorable place than Iran.
Wow.
That is quite striking.
That's pretty heavy. I mean, I know that you obviously are an advocate of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. I mean, you are here to shut down the event, the AIPAC event. Why BDS? Why go that route? We have about 30 seconds.
The BDS campaign demands the respect of three fundamental rights of the Palestinians, which are protected by international law and human rights conventions. And basically what we demand are the basic values of freedom, equality, and justice for all, not only for the privileged Jews, for everyone. So I come here as a privileged Israeli, Jewish citizen who is in solidarity with the underprivileged in their just struggle.
Thank you so much, Ronnie Barkan, co-founder of Boycott Within, an Israeli dissident. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much.